As far as video games are concerned, trends may come and trends may go, but there's something to be said for the timeless satisfaction of kicking a bad guy off of a ledge. So it gladdens my heart to see a recent resurgence of indie immersive sims and first-person action games that embrace a hearty amount of dude-bootin' and man-slapping, making it to the forefront of the old Steam store.
Today we're putting one such game in the spotlight, Corpus EDAX. It's a dystopian police punch-in simulator with a focus on close combat combos and stat-driven RPG gameplay, produced entirely by a single, very exhausted developer, Luis G Bento. Can one man succeed in his dream of making a martial arts-flavored Deus Ex, or will Corpus EDAX trip over its own shoelaces during its sprint to the finish line? Let's find out.
And as always, if you wish to support our quest to shine a lantern into the deep, dark depths of indie games and RPGs, we'll talk about that towards the end of the video. But for now, let's open up the hybrid chamber, slip on the steel toes, and step into the distant city of Corpus EDAX. My name is Boss Sauce.
And I'm Roland Kunz. And together, we are the two-headed hero. Let's just get this out of the way. You might have noticed the title of the video. Corpus EDAX is saving the immersive sim. Sort of. Why sort of? Well, for starters, this game is only sort of an immersive sim, with many of its elements and structure placing it closer to a linear Western RPG.
Secondly, the community surrounding Corpus EDAX and other games like it have sort of started to become an indie developer network in the making, with dozens of devs sharing their work, advice, experience, and encouragement. Little underground networks like this can only be a good thing for games as a whole.
Thirdly, the current state of the game is admittedly sort of rough. It can be completed from beginning to end, but the amount of fun you'll have doing that is somewhat dependent on what kind of player you are. If you're looking for something polished with Hollywood caliber voice acting and cutting edge cutscenes, this ain't it. But if you can stomach some creative ideas, indie jank, and early access feel, then watch on. Maybe you'll see that Corpus EDAX is something you can get down with.
Corpus EDAX opens to a grungy 90s industrial-looking menu. Chonky computers, sickly neon lights, moody music, it's a good vibe. Clicking this button here, labeled Indie Revolution, displays a big selection of other interesting games to check out. Definitely wish more developers did this. It helps reinforce the sense of community while providing some more cool stuff to add to the wish list.
The game opens in the far future, and humanity has left for the stars long ago. The discovery of a unique metal, cellumineral oil.
I think it's cellumineral ore.
Cellumineral ore. The discovery of a unique metal, cellumineral ore, has created a bit of a corporate gold rush, ultimately resulting in one of the only successfully settled planets. Mining operations require a steady supply of warm bodies to keep working, and as a result, an entire megacity with its own dystopian world government springs up in response. This city is called, wait for it, Corpus EDAX.
The player is placed in the role of one of these freshly thawed colonists ready to start an exciting new job at a food distribution center, but you quickly find out that the situation in the city isn't as rosy as the propaganda makes it seem. Imagine that. There's no job waiting for you, gangs are running rampant, food is scarce, and before you know it, you'll be pulled into the center of a rebel movement that aims to topple the dystopian government and place the means of production in the hands of the people. Cool premise, right?
You can choose to navigate through a brief and somewhat messy tutorial to get the basics of movement, combat, and other systems, or just step right into the cryopod and generate your Frosted Freedom Fighter. Character generation might look a bit familiar to anyone that's played the Fallout games, with base stats rolling down to derived stats that affect how well your brawler can pick locks, throw furniture, do the punchy kicky stuff, and so on. It's nice that you can slowly feel the results of your skill upgrades pay off. Your body moves a little smoother, punches are a little faster and more potent, and hacking becomes a little easier as you grow your colonist from a frozen dinner into a formidable fighter.
Combat is the centerpiece of Corpus EDAX. Most of the time you'll be going at it barehanded. There's a basic block and dodge at your disposal, and a good variety of combos and power attacks unlock as your combat skills increase. Mixing up your approach is crucial, since opponents will block, dodge, and throw stuff to keep you guessing. Wait, but what are these guys throwing at you? Where does it come from? Is it poop? Oh, it's poop.
I hate it when it's poop. If our YouTube channel was Is It Poop, we would be doing much better.
Oh man, maybe we should just start a second channel.
Fights can quickly become chaotic, partly due to the adorably bouncy physics, and partly since an errant swing from one of your opponents tends to result in some crazy three-way infighting. It's fully possible to lead guards on a merry chase while you whip glass bottles or trip them up with crates. There's a good dynamic element to many of the battles here. The first time I launched a gangster through a pane of glass or set someone ablaze with a burning barrel brought a cheeky grin to my lips.
Since guns are outlawed in the city, you're going to be fighting this rebellion with whatever bricks and bottles you can get your hands on. There's a certain satisfaction one gets when bashing a corporate watchdog over the head with a Kindle, ripping a piece of conduit from the wall and swinging it into the teeth of some random subway guard definitely gives the game a bit of a pro wrestling vibe. I just wish you could get like a barbed wire baseball bat and like actually fold up the chairs before you hit a guy with it. That'd be really cool.
Barbed wire baseball bat. That's a good warm-up phrase. I put my barbed wire baseball bat in my backpack. Backpacks also seem to be outlawed on Corpus EDAX, though, so I guess I won't be putting my barbed wire baseball bat in my backpack. So your freedom fighter only has pocket space for 3 small handheld weapons. There is a dedicated inventory system, but this only houses a few consumables and quest items. Your colonist has a pretty modest health pool and can only restore vitality in limited ways. Outside of combat, sitting down to take a little breather can restore a small amount of health. But the only healing items that you can stockpile are these nondescript brown cans of minced meat and bean slurry. This seems to be the only type of food available in all of Corpus EDAX, so this can mean only one thing. Canonically, everybody in the city definitely do be fartin'. They be farting up a storm. I know why the sky looks how it does all the time, and that is because the methane, the extreme amount.
Yeah, man-made pollution. The other healing item will quickly become your best friend, the U-Fix syringe. This double dose of space drugs can be found practically everywhere, and it's far more than just a healing item. Stab it into your own guts to heal damage, switch your grip to use it as a deadly shiv once it's empty, and chuck it at a guard's head to one-shot them with ease. You won't want to waste pocket space on anything else.
But when needles are in short supply, you can always fall back on the game's secret win button, the Mighty Boot. Kick guys to make space to maneuver, launch them over the edge of a catwalk, or most importantly, watch them bounce hilariously down the stairs due to the game's wacky physics.
Deleting dudes with the death boot is super fun, of course, but the dev must have realized how overpowered it is since a couple measures were made to rein it in. Since this is a running kick, it does need a bit of a running start to pull it off, and it's tied to a stamina meter that slowly replenishes. Still, you can get off a good 3 or 4 kicks over the course of a single encounter if you play it smart. Here's another pipe. Bonk.
Duck-a-bonk.
We got pitchfork.
Oh no, I did not like where that pitchfork ended up and what that implied. Overall, this focus on close combat gives Corpus EDAX an early 2000s feel, similar to something like Xenoclash, the cult classic horror game Condemned Criminal Origins, or the obscure Xbox first-person brawler Breakdown. Breakdown? But the game doesn't end there. You'll be spending plenty of time scaling walls and poking around in dark corners, pulling B&Es on various labs, and searching dilapidated slums for clues that can aid your fledgling uprising. And beans! Sometimes the clues are in the beans. That's what I heard.
Corpus EDAX has some novel takes on the tired old hacking and lockpicking minigames, and both prove to be pretty fun and challenging. Hack a face scanner to open a door, or just drag the unconscious body of the right scientist in front of it instead. Use doorknob? No thanks. Carefully pick the lock on that door or just pummel it with your fists until it shatters into pieces, or convince a guard to let you slip past. Bits and pieces scattered around the game's levels can be picked up for corpo creds, and the Resistance base features a shop that can be used to buy and sell a limited number of items. There's a decent amount of interactivity here, and this is where the game's ImSim influences shine through the most.
The main strength in the game's presentation lies with the environments. The most memorable battle took place in this huge nightclub. Corpo cops throw down with resistance fighters in the glow of laser lights, while an industrial track blasts from a haphazard pile of speakers on the dance floor. Outside, a web of pipelines and smokestacks belch flames into the cold blue darkness of the city skyline. There's an extensive sequence in the mines where you get to doink dudes into the center of the planet. Corpomed's office building is a massive, nightmarish maze of brightly lit corridors and oppressive neon monuments. Decaying megacity streets sprawl through the jutting edges of graffiti-covered brutalist structures.
Admittedly, the game's not a real looker, but it has a consistent dystopian tone. Clean lines meet dust and disuse. Stark contrasting colors and smartly applied lighting decorate simple geometry. I especially love zooming in on the smaller details. Cool future doors that fold in on themselves as they open. Terminals that have a cute little plant hologram on top. Why is this flickering shop light in the trash? And what the hell is it plugged into while it's in the dumpster? Wait a second. Are those working mirrors?
Character models have a simplistic, rough look to both their geometry and animations. Most of the animation quality went into the fighting moves. Understandable since brawling makes up most of the game. This results in the characters all having a surreal, plasticine, Unity engine look.
Sound effects are another story. While what's there already is quality, so many sounds seem to be just flat out missing. Most of the noises here are punches, kicks, and footsteps, which feel a bit jarring without their accompanying feedback sounds. Guards don't shout when they see you. They don't even scream when you set them ablaze. The lack of ambience makes the game feel empty because of this, with entire areas and encounters feeling devoid of atmosphere. A soundtrack fills in some of the dead space here. Corpus EDAX even managed to get a Grimbeard track featured in its nightclub level, which is quite an achievement in itself, and probably goes to explain why that sequence holds up so well. If anything, this is an example of how much invisible weight the soundscape can pull when it comes to making a game feel polished. And since there's no voiceover to speak of, the game relies entirely on text and dialogue boxes to tell its tale.
Quest structures in Corpus EDAX follow a familiar format. Talk to an NPC, exhaust their dialogue trees, wander around the environments for clues until you figure out what you've got to do, and return to the quest giver to close the loop. An optional compass marker can make this process easier for those that don't want to spend their time wandering around. There's very little in the way of side quests here, so most of the time you'll be driving the main story forwards. So you've left the deep freeze and regained your bearings during corporate orientation. You are fresh off the tram, and the first challenge you'll have is finding a way into your state-sponsored apartment. This is when you'll first bump into a member of the Skulls, a powerful street gang that has a deep foothold in your city sector.
There's a few ways around this guy. Seduce him, pay him off, and so on, but I choose to use a more direct method. Apply chair directly to forehead. This encounter isn't just mechanically important though. The gangster almost immediately shatters the idyllic image that the world government painted moments ago as he shakes you down for whatever scraps of corpo creds you might have. There's no food distribution center, no job. The state won't be taking care of you. The city of Corpus EDAX is a massive machine that grinds up the working class.
Once you settle into your apartment, you'll have a weird dream where a dead guy named Jackson talks about a secret stash in the wall safe that hides an important list of names and tells you to deliver the list to a mysterious lady on the outskirts of the city. Since you don't have a job anymore, you decide to spend your surprise day off doing some legwork for your dream invader.
The bombed-out ruins on the rim of Corpus EDAX are filled with more than just twisted rebar and tetanus. It's also a hidden nest for what remains of the Salvation, a rebel movement that aims to topple the world government. After a little bit of tightrope walking, you'll find yourself face to face with Jackie, the leader of one of the last resistance cells. At first, she doesn't really believe your story about talking to a dead dream dude, but the list of names you have in your hot little hands is real enough.
Turns out these names belong to the long-hidden heads of the world government. Now that the Salvation Army knows who to strike, they can finally carry out Jackson's final wish and cut the head off the snake, so to speak. And it falls on you. Yes, you, a newly minted, freshly unboxed, ready frozen space colonist, to form the tenuous tip of this wobbly spear.
Your first few missions involve helping Salvation gather their forces, restore supply lines, and form some alliances with other members of Splinter Cell Resistance factions. But once you get around to the grisly task of unaliving the heads of state, the questions start to compound. How does the world government even retain its power structure? What's up with these special U-fix needles that you find everywhere, and how do they even work? What makes the unique and coveted cellumineral ore so valuable? And why does this dead guy keep invading your dreams? Why?
Pacing issues in the second half make Corpus EDAX feel more like a gauntlet, and this is when things start to feel decidedly more rushed. Environments are a bit emptier in both content and combat. This is a bit of a shame too. Some more downtime between missions and conversations with your fellow resistance fighters would go a long way towards enforcing the story beats. Ultimately, the game might have done better to either embrace the hub area more, allowing players to travel into other city sections organically, or just get rid of the hub entirely, opting for a fully mission-based structure.
This rushed feeling bleeds into several other areas of the experience. A lot of time in Corpus EDAX is spent throwing karate moves, but there's not much in the way of enemy variety. At the end of the day, you're mostly fighting a bunch of guys with the same moveset. Maybe add in some enforcers with riot shields that need to be tripped or knocked over to disarm. Or maybe toss in some taser guards that can stun you if they spot you but drop their tasers if you manage to take them out with stealth. I mean, that's just a couple of possibilities off the dome, but even one or two more enemy types would really help mix up the action here.
The enemies that do exist are challenging enough in a stand-up fight, and the environments and placement help keep things interesting. But there's some fairly large holes in the enemy behaviors. And we're not just talking about this pitchfork. They don't always react to the player breaking stuff or dragging bodies around, for example, and this kind of breaks down the suspension of disbelief.
Corpus EDAX offers up a lot of skills on the surface, but the usefulness of these skills varies wildly. There's very few chances to solve a conflict via conversation, and less opportunities for lockpicking as the game progresses. The game also has a decent amount of bugs crawling around. Sometimes a strong kick will just unexpectedly teleport an enemy into the furniture. Finally, and I realize this is a tiny nitpick, I absolutely hate the flashlight. It's a radial light that only stretches a couple feet from your character, sort of like the Fallout 3 Pip-Boy lamp. Radial flashlights are always super annoying to me. It's like shining a light at your toes. Just give me a directional beam, for crying out loud, I'm trying to see here.
It might seem like we've been bashing on this game over the last few minutes, but there is something cool and worth your time here. If you're familiar with the banter we toss across our cozy little table here, you probably know that we do our best to make Two-Headed Hero a positive space. Tons of reviewers out there make it a priority to tear games apart. Sure, maybe that gets clicks. Gamer rage bait has existed since, well, the dawn of the internet. But to put it simply, there's enough angry reviewers out there already, and it's exhausting. Since both of us come from creative backgrounds and realize that tons of talented people spend thousands of individual man-hours to make these pieces of digital art, our philosophy is to focus on games we think are interesting or cool while still acknowledging their flaws. For the most part, we ignore the big titles that are getting shredded in the press. It's really easy to punch down on someone's creation and much harder to build something up.
So yes, Corpus EDAX might be rough in a lot of places. The game basically slipped through a pile of banana peels before crashing headlong into a 1.0 release and bouncing off its own wobbly physics. Was it ready for this full release? Probably not. But despite this, the bottom line is, I still had a lot of fun here, and ultimately, that's all that really counts.
When turning an eye to the game's Discord, it's clear that work has not finished on Corpus EDAX. A New Game Plus mode that adds crazy superpowers will join a slew of other improvements and fixes in the near future, and patches are already being uploaded multiple times a week. There's a vibrant community surrounding the game as well, a theme which seems to be increasingly common within the indie ImSim circles.
This is a recommendation with conditions. If you pay the price tag for Corpus EDAX, you're not only supporting a passionate solo dev, you're supporting a burgeoning community that welcomes and celebrates immersive sim enthusiasts. And if you enjoy weirdly ambitious game concepts with wobbly physics and dystopian stories, you might have fun with it too. Just be aware that the game will probably feel like it's in early access for some time to come.
And speaking of early access, if you want to get early access to our reviews, special Patreon-only videos, polls, and regular updates, consider stepping through the door of the Heroes Tavern over on Patreon. Only 2 measly freedom dollars gets you through the tavern door.
But if your pockets are light this month, you can still help us out by liking the video and hitting that trusty subscribe button down there. Maybe tell us about your favorite first-person punchers. Have you played any of the ones we mentioned today? And which one's the most accurate simulation of a felony assault charge? Let us know what you think down below.
I will be watching the comments for people's first-person puncher suggestions. And if you have like an obscure jumpomancy game that you know of, let me know about that too. I do love a jumpomancy. Anyways, as always, a hearty cheer goes out to our top-tier supporter, Wolfgang Bristol.
And we thank all the brave adventurers sitting at the hero's table, including Adam Uselman,
Jaduzable,
KK,
Wolpes,
and the rest. Your donations allow us to keep pursuing the videos we want to make, rather than what'll just chase clicks. We appreciate it truly. So until next time, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next
Two-Headed Hero.